Oh boy. Okay. Being a lizard. Let's throw it at Rachel. We gotta get dressed and everything, right? But we gotta wither away, right?
Wither away. You
Alright.
can get dressed if you want.
Check locked door. Float through as ghost. Check supernatural artifact and then grab it. Back to room. Gotta eat something.
Well, now we know how to get the claymore if we want to give a claymore to children.
Hmm. In and out. In and out. Alright. Throw artifact at Rachel. As she approached to shake his hand, Kyle produced the supernatural artifact and winged it at Rachel's face. Within moments of the artifact colliding with her head, Rachel started to turn into a lizard demon. Rachel began to cause destruction, tipping over lights and causing crew members to scatter. Kyle, realizing the disaster he had caused, decided it was up to him to tame the monster. Throw crew members at monster. Throw self at monster. Throw crew members. Kyle started to grab nearby crew members and hurl them at Rachel. The crew members were bounded off to Rachel on all sides, causing little to no damage to her or themselves. In a lizard demon rage, Rachel rushed at Kyle and drove him into the opposite wall, face first. She began to pound Kyle's face into the wall repeatedly, littering it with head-sized holes. Kyle, having been in this situation before, felt he knew exactly what to do. Balling his fist, Kyle began to punch himself in the stomach repeatedly, causing loud gurgles and pops. Kyle's strategy did not help. He continued to be mashed into the wall. After a period of time, the artifact lodged in Rachel's face came loose and fell to the floor. Rachel immediately turned into her normal human self. The studio, now in shambles, flicked to life. The broadcast had started automatically. Kyle, unable to move properly, became aware that the eyes of many were upon him. Kyle tried to address the audience, but instead spewed some mixture of breakfast, phlegm, and chunks of wall. Kyle's spewing video became a very hot meme. Online personalities used it to express distaste about social issues. Teenagers sent it to each other about homework amounts. Rachel's broadcast was rescheduled for the following week. Fans complained about not being able to see Rachel's face as she wore protective headgear the entire time. Rachel prepared by being a lizard.
Rachel was prepared. Okay. There's a bunch of ones where you don't have your notes, and then you either blame something else or eat something gross.
So how do we get the claymore?
I guess you'd be a ghost. I don't know if it will work.
I gotta embrace the Christmas spirit though, right?
Yeah. I guess you try being a ghost first. Oh, you embrace the Christmas spirit. Try release the elves.
Oh, here it is. Get laser claymore.
Okay, cool. Why did you shop now?
I don't know. But it's here. So move the kitchen, make Christmas cookies. Pickles. Alright. Go on Santa duties. Give presents to children. Laser Claymore. Kyle produced the laser claymore and wordlessly handed it to the closest child. The child's eyes got big in excitement and a wondrous grin crossed his face. Before anyone could react, the child began swinging wildly with both arms, as a child would. The child's parents made an attempt to grab the child, but he quickly ran in the opposite direction, still swinging. As the child ran through the park, the claymore cut through benches, trees, and the ground itself. A path of destruction was formed. The child continued to run at full speed, entering the rest of the city. He reached the side of a building, but did not stop. Through his wild swings, the claymore cut a hole through the wall. Within minutes, the city was in a panic as a small child systematically crashed in and out of every building he could. The rampage continued as the city residents looked on helplessly, accepting this would be the end of their livelihood. Soon there was no area in the city left unmarred. Destruction was rampant. Traffic was at a standstill. Buildings toppled to the ground. The city electricity grid was destroyed. The city was in shambles. Kyle wasn't sure how to react. He eventually looked at the child's parents. They were giving him a stern and slightly irritated look. "Boy," said Kyle, pumping his arm, "kids sure will be kids." Kyle walked away, humming softly. The destruction of the city brought about a new wave of apocalypse tourism like nobody had seen before. The city's economy flourished. Kyle's city became a travel hotspot for the rest of the world. This small child ran for the office the following week and was elected, becoming the first 7-year-old governor. Interesting.
I don't know, maybe the artifact is gift of blessing?
You think so?
Possible. If you grab the artifact, can you gift a blessing?
So grab it.
Grab. Try and give it to the kids, I guess.
Nope.
Oh, so what is a blessing? I guess go back to the normal ones for a second.
Alright, let's get dressed up as Anna. You can spread Christmas cheer inside the Techno Gym store thing. Give gift to Techno Gym.
You can give gift to Techno Gym.
Kyle knew that Christmas would not be complete if Techno Jim didn't receive a gift. Kyle walked up to Techno Jim with a large smile. In a moment, Kyle started to compress his stomach. Slowly, a present emerged from his mouth. He grasped the gift with his hand and yanked it out of his body. It was wet with spit. Kyle placed the gift at Techno Jim's feet, smiled again, and left the store. Consume Gabby?
Wait, what? Consume Gabby.
Where'd that come from?
I don't know.
Well, time for the interview anyways. Yeah, this one's just throw artifact at Rachel.
I don't think you need to do that.
Nope, it's all the normal ones. I ran out of notes though, I didn't make notes. Play dead. Kyle slumped in his seat and played dead. Kyle, what are you up to? Asked Rachel, still smiling. Kyle did not respond and hoped nobody would ask questions. Kyle, why are you pretending to be dead? Asked Rachel. I can see you're breathing. Kyle held his breath. The producer whispered to Rachel over her earpiece. Give him a couple slaps across the face and see if he wakes up. Rachel got up from her chair to walk to Kyle and slapped him firmly across the face. Rachel slapped Kyle continuously, trying to get him to stop play acting. Other members of the crew stepped into frame to start slapping Kyle as well. Slapping him. Soon Kyle was lost in the amassment of people around him, all slapping his face with both hands. The slapping went on for many hours. Kyle did not wake up. Eventually, Kyle did not need to pretend to be unconscious. He was now actually unconscious. Kyle prepared by quote-unquote dying. Okay. Nope, that wasn't it. Alright, anyways. Let's embrace the Christmas spirit. Open closet. Put on the Santa suit. Let's get the elves. Where do you release the elves?
I don't know. Trying to figure out how to release them.
Sit at desk. Create. Alright, let's go eat something. Exit the bedroom, hallway, kitchen. There's my cookies. No, I guess not. You gotta prepare regular stuff. Not the naughty and nice list if you're gonna go for regular notes. Right, that makes sense. Run away. Kyle ejected from his seat and ran out of the studio as quickly as possible. After it became apparent that Kyle was not coming back, the producer ended the episode and everyone went home. Kyle prepared by running away. Alright, let's put the Santa suit on. Kyle grabbed the attendant and shook him. "Merry Christmas!" screamed Kyle very intently. The attendant looked very much like he wanted Kyle to stop. Kyle gave one last shake, a jolly smile, and considered the job well done.
Job well done.
Job well done. Consume Gabby. Kyle unhinged his jaw and swallowed Gabby whole. Job well done, Kyle. Kyle returned to the middle of the street. Got a check mark on something.
I guess. You did good.
What's that do?
It means the Bug Crusader can't show up for certain events. Because you ate her.
Okay, so let's dress up as Santa. Put on a Santa suit. Sit at desk. Is your mother a mother? Everina Raig. What's your funniest story? Are you guilty? So let's go accuse Rachel that she's guilty, but consume Gabby so Gabby won't be available to stop it. Is your mother a mother? So, said Kyle, my mother is my mother. My mother's mother is her mother, and my mother's mother. And many mothers have mother's mother's mother. Is your mother a mother? Rachel went to answer and stopped. I believe, she said eventually, that I should answer yes. Kyle asked another question. Ever eaten a raw egg whole? Hey, Rachel, ever eaten a raw egg whole? Asked Kyle. Like shell and all? Asked Rachel. Kyle continued, I have, like, a lot. It's really bad, though, so sometimes I spit it back up. There was a silence. But actually, it gets easier the more you do it, continued Kyle without losing momentum. So don't start, I say. Rachel chose to not answer and look in another direction. What's your funniest story? You've been involved in a lot of different things, said Kyle, but what's your funniest story? Well, that's a great question, Kyle, said Rachel. I think the story I always remember is the first time I tried to make dinner for my family. In the soup I made, I swapped out the water with milk and tipped the whole jar of salt in the pot. While my family was sick from trying to eat it, I swiped their things and locked myself in my room. Rachel laughed elegantly. Kyle decided to move on. Are you guilty, Rachel? Rachel's eyes twitched slightly. Guilty of what, dear Kyle? Guilty of your crimes. Do I call police or do I just go on?
Call police.
Call police. Hello, police, said Kyle. I believe I found a criminal. Rachel began to run towards the exit. On her way, she swatted Kyle's phone out of his hand. Trip her. Kyle stuck out his leg. Rachel stumbled and crashed to the floor. But in a moment she was on her feet. She drew a blunt weapon, seemingly out of thin air, and started swinging at Kyle. Kyle, having nothing to defend himself with, was smacked repeatedly in the head. Kyle lost consciousness, but somehow managed to remain upright. Rachel, thinking Kyle had not been incapacitated, continued her assault. Eventually, standing upright or not, it became apparent that Kyle had been adequately incapacitated. Rachel looked around slightly guiltily and shuffled out the door. In the following days, Rachel disappeared from the country. Crime rates plummeted. What? Just because she left?
Yeah.
Kyle was credited with cracking the case on a crime spree. Nevertheless, Rachel was never caught. Kyle let Rachel go. No, he didn't.
You let Rachel go. You let it happen. Don't you understand?
Alright, what do we do?
Let's see. Eat gross stuff on TV by not preparing your script and just bringing something gross.
Just have bugs?
Bugs, lard, anything.
Sounds good.
Kyle can run away from his problems by eating disgusting stuff on TV.
Interesting. There's the hard way to open the locked door. Force the door with forehead. Kyle decided it would be best to try to force the door open with the use of his face. After smashing his features into solid wood for several minutes, Kyle gained severe short-term amnesia. Oh, so that's how you get amnesia.
Yep. Good job.
Good job. In fact, I don't even know where I'm going. Just go back and forth. Forget her name from amnesia. Hello, you? Kyle's ears began to ring from his concussion. Rachel looked at Kyle, slightly confused, but continued smiling. Before she noticed the glazed look in Kyle's eyes, the producer reproached. Time to get started, he said, putting his hand on Kyle's shoulder. Let's get stationed. Kyle sat in the nearest chair. Rachel, her seat, stolen, sat in the host chair. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. Good morning, everyone, said Kyle. My name is, Kyle made a desperate effort to remember his name or, really, anything. Kyle looked at Rachel. Do you know who I am? He asked. Rachel looked back, confused. Who are you? Well, if you're not Kyle, I don't know who you are, Rachel smiled sweetly. Kyle made up his mind that he was probably Kyle. Well, he said, I'm Kyle. A long silence followed. Eventually, Rachel spoke again. And I'm Rachel. Hi, everyone, she waved. Hi, Rachel, said Kyle. So why are you here? Rachel was visibly worried. Funny, she said. Were you planning on asking me any questions? I mean, I don't have any ideas, said Kyle. Kyle kept staring at Rachel. Someone coughed. Kyle looked around and noticed the crew. Who on earth are all of you? He asked. Nobody answered. Kyle got out of his chair and walked off frame, leaving Rachel alone with millions of viewers. Rachel started to attempt to entertain herself. Entertain the audience herself. Eventually, the producer ended the broadcast early due to technical issues. Kyle woke up in his bed the next day, remembering nothing about what had happened. Kyle forgot everything. Okay. So don't slam your head into the locked door. Got it. Bugs, but take bugs. Save for later use. There we go. More bugs. Move to kitchen. Check pantry. Back and forth. Back and forth. All right. That didn't give me an option to get to do anything with the bugs.
You didn't eat anything.
I gotta eat something, then eat bugs?
Yes.
What the heck?
Eat bugs is your answer to not having any questions, Rachel.
Oh, okay. Alright, save for later use. Have to go to kitchen. Prepare regular breakfast. Don't smash it. Go to bedroom. Sit at desk. Check door. Small key. Back to room. Back to hallway. Back to kitchen. Check pantry. Key. Let's grab a bottle of lard. And we're good. Act normal. Drink lard. Dive right into this bottle. That is, Kyle pulled out his bottle of lard, bit the tip off, and chugged it. Kyle's body rejected the lard. He began to spew chunks of lard and digestive fluid in every direction. Everything within a 10-foot radius was immediately covered, including Rachel. Kyle continued to vomit. Rachel bravely fought to stay seated amidst the vomit, hoping to save the show from disaster. Unfortunately, Kyle's vomit had covered all of the cameras. There was no broadcast. Kyle finished spewing eventually. The broadcast was not recoverable. All present were sent home, to try again another day. As Kyle got home, he made a mental note to refill his lard supply. Kyle consumed. Was that it?
You ate some lard. Good job.
Alright, what do we do?
First of all, is also after scavenging, you're able to help someone named Henry. I don't know how. You just like get up, scavenge, help Henry.
Help Henry.
I don't know who Henry is.
Indeed, it was the corpse of Harry, a friend that had gone missing years ago while at Kyle's house. Kyle was glad to see him again, but was unsure of whether to interrupt such an important day with Harry's business. deal with Harry. Kyle hoisted Harry onto his shoulder and took him outside. Kyle began dragging Harry's body down the street, drawing many, many stairs. Kyle knew exactly where he needed to take Harry's corpse on a lovely play date, just the two of them. Naked, of course. Kyle and Harry started at the arcade. Kyle used Harry's arms to operate the joysticks and push buttons. After 5 or 6 different games, the two friends had enough tickets for a single candy bar. They took their prize to the local park for eating. Kyle tried to feed some of the chocolate bar to Harry, but Harry seemed to not have an appetite, because he's dead. After eating, Kyle noticed a nearby playground. He dragged Harry over. Kyle tried to figure out a way to swing Harry on the swing set, but lacking the ability to grip, Harry kept falling out. Instead, Kyle started to lug Harry to the top of the slide and shove him down time and time again. Finally, Kyle took Harry to the movies to see as many popular films as their pocket change allowed. Kyle quickly found that he had no pocket change, so he searched Harry's corpse until he found his wallet. Kyle bought 2 tickets to a love romance. After getting inside, Kyle left Harry to go find a restroom. By the time Kyle had finished using the restroom, he had forgotten that he brought Harry along. Kyle watched a love romance by himself. Harry's corpse sat on a bench in the atrium. While Kyle was in the movie, a beautiful thing happened. Harry's corpse, imbued with the power of friendship and love, was reanimated. Harry's old, rotten flesh gained color and life. His fingernails regrew. His missing eye came back. By the time the movie was over, Harry was able to greet Kyle with a large, friendly hug as his old self. Kyle was confused but delighted that his long-lost friend met him on his way out of the theater. The two made plans to get drinks together and parted ways for the day. Kyle returned home, forgetting about the interview with Rachel. Kyle helped a new friend. Kyle helped a friend. That was it?
Reincarnated your friend. Or reanimated.
What's up?
What's up?
What's up? What's this?
What's up?
Missing some.
Yeah. Let's see. They're missing eating the bug ball. Solve the crime, which is like weird fashion. Let me see. Making bug puppets. So get some bugs, go in and sell them to bug puppets.
Sew them?
Yes. Gather bugs as it goes. Then bring them to the sewing machine.
What the heck? Alright, let's do it. Wither away. Now scavenge. Get the bugs. Gotta get dressed. Let's go to hallway. Check the locked door. Float through it. Go inside. Check the machine. Sew bug puppets. Kyle started sewing dead bugs together to make small actuated finger puppets. Kyle crafted a bug puppet for each finger. He named them after guests he had interviewed on his show. So, wait. Do I have to make the notes?
No.
Okay. But I need to eat.
Yeah.
Alright. Produce bug puppets. Kyle slipped his bug puppets onto his fingers. "Hello, everybody," he said, wiggling the puppet he had named after himself. "I'm Kyle." "And I'm Rachel," Kyle screamed, wiggling a different finger. "You're so much better than me." "I know, Rachel," Kyle wiggled. He looked meaningfully at the human Rachel. Said one of Kyle's other puppets. "I'm super fat and Kyle interviewed me last week." "And I'm super irritating," said another finger. "Not very attractive." Rachel stared at Kyle, incredibly disoriented. "Kyle?" she asked. What are those puppets made out of? Kyle thrust out both his hands at Rachel's face, puppets pointed at her eyes. We aren't puppets, Rachel, he said, scrunching his fingers up and down. We're real people. Rachel plucked the puppet that Kyle had said was her off of his finger. Kyle, she exclaimed, this is several dead bugs patched together. Accept us, Rachel, said Kyle, scrunching. We need acceptance. Rachel exited her chair and walked out of frame. In a moment, she returned with a bag. She plucked each puppet off of Kyle's hands and tossed them in the bag. Kyle, leave the bugs alone next time, she said. Rachel left the frame again, bringing the bag of puppets along with her. Kyle, suddenly by himself, was unsure what to do. After a few minutes of hemming and hawing, Kyle resorted to telling jokes for the remainder of the broadcast. Fans did not notice much difference between this and previous episodes. Kyle prepared an average episode.
Okay, so this one's gonna be really hard. So, wither away.
Alright.
Get the flashlight and the change. For your questions, make sure to include, are you guilty?
Alright.
Go buy batteries from the tech shop.
Do I get a good dress?
Not yet.
Alright.
You'll inspect your closet. Time travel.
Kyle, bored of the situation, mashed the button, hardly reading the label above. The box hummed and shook. The outside metal grew hot and slowly curved in on itself. In a moment, it was early in the morning. Kyle had gained several hours of preparation time.
Okay, now wear clothes. Go eat breakfast. If you don't like the laser claymore.
Check locked door. Alright.
Go eat Gabby.
Go eat Gabby.
Eat Gabby.
Okay.
And now you're good.
So now we're good.
Yeah. Now just kill time. Let's get the are you guilty and wait for the tripper option.
Rachel, are you guilty? Kyle threw his questions on the floor, stood up, and pointed at her. Rachel's eye twitched slightly. Guilty of what, dear Kyle? She smiled disingenuously. Guilty, spat Kyle, of your crimes. Call police.
Yep, call the police and tripper.
Tripper. Kyle stuck out his leg. Rachel stumbled and crashed to the floor. But in a moment she was on her feet. She drew a blunt weapon, seemingly out of thin air, and started to swing at Kyle. Kyle produced his laser claymore and blocked her first offenses. A grand fight between the two started. Blows traded for blow. Spins, flips. Rachel threw a large swing towards Kyle's head. He blocked, forcefully sending himself forwards. Kyle and Rachel found themselves inches away from each other, face to face, weapons crossed. As they looked at each other, something magical happened. Kyle thought about all of the times Rachel had smiled at him. Kyle thought about her witty, polite answers. Rachel began to think about how intelligently Kyle had prepared just to talk to her. She thought about how he lived, not magnificently, but in a small, cluttered apartment. Kyle and Rachel had slowly, insidiously been falling in love. Kyle and Rachel's lock was broken. They continued to fight back and forth, but their eyes never parted. Rachel spun around, leg out. She kicked Kyle's claymore out of his hand. She grabbed Kyle by the front of the shirt and tugged him close. Perhaps, she whispered to him, the last thing I should steal is your heart. Rachel pecked Kyle on the lips and slid out the door, disappearing. In the following days, Rachel was not found. Many sums of money and artifacts that had been stolen from museums and banks were returned overnight. Small amounts of the sums were missing. Equal amounts were donated anonymously to homeless charities. Kyle spit Gabby back out after his fight with Rachel. She continued to be a vigilante and stopped many crimes. After receiving a note one night under his door, Kyle took a sudden vacation to a city in Europe. Although he had stated to his fans it would be a short trip, he never returned. Slowly, Kyle fell out of the common mind. News outlets began to cover other topics. Reruns stopped airing. Kyle faded into obscurity. But it's rumored that a couple from the U.S. had started a family on the coast of the British Isles, and they seemed quite happy to not be famous anymore. Kyle was famous.
So the true ending is that he gets together with the girl that's been stealing everything?
I guess so.
Crazy lady?
That's why Kyle was famous. Okay, that's interesting.
So there's still two more. Eat the bug ball and solve the crime.
Alright, so what do we do for Bug Ball?
Just get the bug ball and eat that instead of having any notes.
Okay. Did I just do myself? I think I accidentally smashed breakfast.
You can eat the fridge.
Nah, all the options were taken away. Yeah, that pretty much ended it. Gosh darn it. Alright. Let's do it again. Open closet, blah blah blah. Put on suit. And then scavenge. Bugs. Save for later use. Exit the hallway. Move the kitchen. Open fridge. Make breakfast. Don't smash. Eat. There you go. There you go. All right. Kyle came up with a solution quickly. Produce a bug ball. Well, Rachel, said Kyle, I wanted to show this to you. Kyle produced a ball of bugs he had accumulated from his bedroom floor. Rachel took several beats to figure out what Kyle was holding in his hands, a look of horror crossed her face. Kyle, what on earth is that? She asked. Is it alive? Maybe, said Kyle. Here, watch this. Kyle, staring at Rachel, opened his mouth wide and slowly inserted the gooey ball of bugs. As Rachel watched, obviously unsettled, Kyle began to chew very slowly and intently. Attempting to swallow, Kyle coughed several times, covering Rachel in partially chewed bugs. Rachel sat stock still, processing what had happened. Kyle finished swallowing and opened his mouth to show that there were no bugs left. Well, that was satisfying, he said, smiling widely at the camera. Rachel got out of her seat and left the studio. Kyle prepared by eating bugs.
Okay, so lastly is solve crime. The main ones. We still have gift, blessing, and release the elves. I can't find a guide for this. Okay, wither away. Eat breakfast, wear clothes. Make sure your questions include, are you guilty?
That's it. All right. Let her go. Rachel disappeared out of the door, never to be seen again. In the coming days, the grand larcenies that had been plaguing the city stopped. Kyle was credited with exposing Rachel's crime spree, but nobody remembered in a couple of weeks. A month later, in a European city that Rachel had planned her vacation to, crime rates skyrocketed. Kyle solved the crime.
Yeah, that's all the regular ones.
That's all of those.
Elves and gift, blessing.
So how do you release the elves? Embrace the Christmas spirit. Santa suit. Definitely need elves. Maybe it's spreading Christmas cheer.
But doesn't that end it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Release elves upon the world.
Are there's a button to do that?
Yeah. Kyle dumped his bag of elves on the ground. The elves silently looked around them, stunned by the sudden change of environment. The silence did not last long. The elves began tearing about, screaming Christmas carols and looking for food. Ravenously, they devoured every crumb, piece of trash, and bit of roadkill they could find on Kyle Street. It was not nearly enough to satisfy them. They began to branch out to nearby streets. The elves could not be satiated. They began to swipe food out of the hands of nearby restaurant goers. Like a flood, the elves took over Kyle City. Houses were broken into, streets were blocked. Within minutes, there wasn't a scrap of food left in the city. Driven by a hunger lust, the elves started gnawing their way through walls, devouring buildings from the top down. The government's defense measures were brought in to attempt to stop the wave of elves. In a flurry of rage, the elves launched themselves directly towards their enemy. There was a grand clash of bullets and teeth. The elves clamped themselves firmly onto the army members. Hunks of metal and bulletproof jackets were torn asunder by the elves' mouths. The army's equipment and weapons were systematically swallowed. There was nothing left to stop the elves from consuming every last material from the earth. Nothing except Kyle himself. Kyle planted himself in front of the elf mob menacingly. The elves launched themselves into the air, flying at Kyle, teeth first and screaming Christmas cheer. With cat-like speed, he started grabbing elves out of the air and shoving them into his mouth. Kyle swallowed elves at a frightening pace. He grabbed them with both hands from his legs as they tried to climb up. Kyle's stomach began to bulge with elf mass, but he did not slow down. As suddenly as it had started, the flurry of elves ended. Kyle had swallowed them all. Kyle became a national icon of homeland defense. The world began to refer to Kyle among the great history of figures of humanity. Kyle was preemptively awarded the next 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. His name became synonymous with safety and joy. Kyle spent the next few days hunched over the toilet, hacking elves out one by one and flushing them into the sewer. The elves formed an underground society in the belly of the city, living happily in peace away from humanity. Kyle released the elves. So it's just that blessing one.
All it's like is a blessing. With this game, how exactly are you supposed to give a blessing?
Yeah, good question. How do you give a blessing as Santa Claus? As Kyle continued to spin, Gabby shut and locked her door, as she did every time Kyle screamed outside her door.
Okay, so you get the flashlight, you swallow Gabby, and then you give Gabby to the children.
That's a blessing? What's the flashlight got to do with
I
it?
don't know. Go get the flashlight first. Get it all set up with everything.
Okay. So sit at desk. Get the flashlight. Get the change. Buy batteries.
No, go eat Gabby.
Consume Gabby.
Go on Santa duties.
Give presents to children. Neighbor Gabby. Really? Kyle presented the children with a gift. Neighbor Gabby. Kyle bugged his eyes and started punching his stomach repeatedly. In a loud and sudden moment, Gabby was gifted to the children. Here, children, said Kyle, gasping, is my neighbor Gabby. Gabby looked around, equal parts confused and irritated. The parents of the children collectively started screaming. Still yourselves, said Kyle. Gabby is a gift, not an enemy. Kyle, I am not a thing, said Gabby. You need to stop doing this. Kyle looked hurt. Gabby, you're very pleasant, and I want to share you with the world. What on earth just happened? Where did she come from? The parents continued to be horrified. It's fine, everyone, said Kyle. This is my neighbor, Gabby. And then everybody understood. Oh, I see now, said one parent. Well, kids, you better gather her up because we need to go. The children formed a small line and hoisted Gabby over their heads. They slowly departed from the park, carrying her along. Kyle, don't forget your rent. The landlord was asking me about it today, said Gabby as she was carried away. Kyle grunted, gave a small nod, and walked away. Later that night, Kyle heard Gabby's front door slam and wondered why she had been returned. Kyle gifted a blessing. What's the flashlight got to do with that?
I don't know, but they got the flashlight beforehand. So why not?
There we go. That's every single ending.
Did you have fun?
Yep. Kyle was famous.
He was.
Anyways, that's going to do it for this. Want to thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a comment. Hope you have yourself a good day.
You're cute.
Here you go. Bye-bye.